Hello everyone, and today we are in conversation with Nanda Lakkaraju, MD Carrier Technologies India Limited. Nanda is an experienced engineering and operations leader with a demonstrated history of working in HVAC and refrigeration industries. So thank you so much, Nanda, for coming for this conversation.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. So today's conversation is a very interesting topic about ER&D GCCs and how they are expanding to newer locations. So you know how, because they are evolving, so to say, many are expanding their operations to different cities beyond the tier 1 cities. So it could be those tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. And this session we are trying to explore how these ER&D GCCs are uniquely positioned to accelerate their growth by positioning, by locating themselves in near manufacturing setups. And this would actually foster innovation and develop robust infrastructure and ecosystems as well. So I wanted to understand, starting right away with the first question, that why are these engineering GCCs moving to other locations, and what are their, beyond the traditional hubs, how are they moving towards the other cities? It could be tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. And what advantages are these cities offering?
Okay. I mean, so first of all, I think the GCCs themselves have seen tremendous growth over the last many years, and I think they're continuing to see that.
Yes.
And the nature of the work that's happening in GCCs is also expanding. So it's not, it's not the traditional transactional kind of work, and you are playing a role in a much larger part of the development system. So especially if you have if you're a company which has products and services which you're selling, as we kind of localize those products more, and as the manufacturing presence kind of scales up, there's a lot of advantage in having the GCC either co-located or be very near to it. Mm-hmm. It really kind of takes us to where the action is, right? And putting a product together doesn't just require engineering expertise. It requires manufacturing, it requires product management, it requires supply chain, the entire ecosystem kind of coming together. And you can't really put a lot of new factories inside the current tier 1 cities, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there is no space. So as we kind of, as the manufacturing presence scales up, I think there is a natural gravitation towards kind of having things there. Mm-hmm. Second is, as you kind of move from really more of a digital world to more of sort of the physical world, right? There is a need for more labs. There is a need for more of those interactions, and those become very important also. Yeah. So I think it's, for example, very hard to put a very large chiller lab inside a software technology park, right? Exactly. So you need other infrastructure, you need water, you need electricity, you need space. So I believe that's the reason why there is attraction towards emerging markets and emerging cities, and wherever those cities are, I think the GCCs will also grow there, because they were already there in the tier 1, tier 2. They'll continue to grow in the emerging cities as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we've also seen like a lot of, government also giving a lot of, additional support as well. And the ecosystem is also definitely developing in these cities. So definitely. So you had briefly touched upon co-locating near the manufacturing setup. So from your experience, can you share some example of, the co-location of these GCCs, and, there has been a successful implementation because of that?
I'll probably talk a little bit broadly, on this topic. But number one, for example, if you are developing product, right? I mean, the entire design for manufacture element becomes that much more possible if the engineers are actually alongside where the product is getting manufactured. Completely. Number one. Yes. Number two, a lot of times in the labs, right? I mean, engineers think about how products need to work inside a lab environment. But when you actually go to the field, I mean, it is a real world out there. I mean, there's different kinds of noises, there's different kinds of environments that the products are working in. So I think connecting with service people, manufacturing people who've been touching the product all their life, I think plays a very large role. So frankly, it gives a lot of great grounding and understanding on what kind of decisions you need to take, as an engineer or as a development team member, to really kind of bring that to fruition. So I think clearly there is an advantage there from a co-location. I mean, when you see something happen in front of your eyes, there is a certain power towards that. Right? Yeah. So you're not simulating everything. Yeah. But I think it's also an opportunity where you can quickly demonstrate your thoughts and ideas into action. So if you need to do a rapid prototype, or if you need to do something different, you can do those things a lot quicker. It's not that you cannot do it if you are not co-located, but you are like, you have one more degree of separation.
Easier,
so you have to put a bit more effort into that. So if you're co-located, it becomes a little bit more easier. Not only that, but wherever you got factories, right? And for example, it wouldn't surprise me that, let's say if you got into like our space, you could have 200-300 suppliers that supply product to the factory, and all of those get assembled. So it's not just now your manufacturing space, but it is also your supplier's manufacturing space. And that really takes it to an order of magnitude difference. So I think, imagine if you kind of get that productivity through the supply chain and what's possible. That's really the power of co-location.
Yeah, I mean the entire ecosystem is around, so
Correct,
it becomes much easier.
Yeah, and not everybody has to be co-located, but a large number of suppliers will be co-located to where you are, or near located.
It's true. Got it. So does that also play a factor in choosing location then?
I would definitely say that's one of the factors, in there. It may not be necessarily the primary. It really depends on the nature of the business that you are in, right? So if you are in, let's say, fintech, it's very different from a product company. So I think it really depends on the nature of the GCC. But wherever possible, equipping the engineers and the team with an overall view and knowledge of the industry is always going to be helpful, because that's where you cannot really drive innovation.
Got it. Fair enough. So, to locate, to be near a manufacturing setup, it is also important to build that critical infrastructure and, some components as well, which is also sustainable in nature. It has to be that angle has to be taken into consideration as well for the growth, overall growth as well. So what do you think are those critical infrastructural components that one needs to take into consideration?
Interesting question. So I think there's 3-4 buckets that I look at it. One is the sort of the basic one, right? I mean, you need to kind of have the basic infrastructure, the connectivities, etc., which I think most tier 1, tier 2 have. I think most tier 3, tier 4 will get there. That's the first part. The second part is whatever is the core infrastructure that you need for your particular field, I think needs to be there. For example, it might mean that you need certain types of labs, or you will have a factory, or you will have certain suppliers over there. And I think kind of pulling those people together plays a very vital role. So how is that kind of getting enabled is sort of one part. Then the third and probably quite an important part is on the talent piece. It's not just about having people, but are the people trained appropriately? Do they have the right skills? Because if you are trying to get a lot more work done out of the GCCs, it's not just transaction. Now you're doing more end-to-end, more subsystem, more system level work. That domain knowledge, that regulatory landscape, the competitive landscape, customer orientation, all those become important. And how do you really take your talent and get the best possible output from your talent becomes important, right? And then the last thing is, remember, you're not doing everything yourself. So there will always be partners, right? There could be suppliers, there could be academia, there could be industry partnerships. So I think the fourth pillar would be, how do you kind of really leverage that ecosystem? So I think all these 4 become important, because they all play a role one way or the other in the development of the product.
So you touched upon talent as well. So is that a little difficult to get the right talent in these tier 2, tier 3 cities?
See, I wouldn't necessarily think so. I think the way I look at it is, you kind of get a building block to start with, right? I mean, you have basic skills, or depending on the role, or you could have more experienced skills. But what you do with the talent once you have them become very important. So there is. We kind of look at it in 2-3 different areas again. So there is upskilling, which means whatever you have within you need to kind of get more knowledge in that particular area. One could be reskilling, which means you take a person who is, let's say, been doing certain particular topic, and maybe they've got an interest either personally or professionally to look at something else. And so therefore there could be opportunities to reskill. Technical skills versus soft skills are very important. It's increasingly a global world, so you're dealing with people across the globe. So how do you interact with different cultures? How do you interact with different, locations, time zones, navigate that? So I think there's a lot that goes into developing talent. So I wouldn't want to go and say that, look, you will get talent in this place. You might get more ready-made talent in a bigger city to start with. But then what do you do with the talent to help them be more productive? I think is really up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. I mean, of course, you've touched upon these 5-6 points, but also overall in the ER&D GCC landscape, what trends do you envisage in the future? And what exactly, how are they? What kind of what do you think is going to happen in the future?
See, I think this is a very vast area. I mean, if I look at the overall engineering R&D spend globally, it's a very large number, right? Yeah. It's a very large number, and I think we are only at the surface of this. I think so. The runway and the opportunity is just tremendous. You pick whichever area you want, and I think earlier in some of the sessions today, I think people were talking about it. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it is on industrials or if it is in semiconductor or if it is in other manufacturing, etc. But I think so many areas there's opportunity, and I think that the real challenge would be to really go from being transactional to being a bit more strategic and do more end-to-end development work. Yeah. And I think that's a place where engineering alone won't do it. So I think there has to be a combination of engineering, also with manufacturing, with supply chain, with product management. I think all this we really come together quite well in a GCC context. And so I think the whichever area we kind of look at, I think there's a much larger canvas ahead of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So now shifting gears a little bit, when it comes to sustainably growing, how can we incorporate sustainable, engineering practices to make sure that we are, growing in a responsible manner? So what can GCCs, engineering GCCs particularly, what can they look at and how can they incorporate such practices? Yeah.
So sustainability, frankly, is at the core of a lot of our practices at Career. Exactly. And this is a topic that's also very close to home. And in fact, if I understand your question, I mean, there's really two aspects of that question, right? I mean, what do we do sort of within our operations, and what do we do with our product? And where that becomes very important is if you look at sort of our sustainability goals, and if you look at, let's say, the overall emissions, what they consider scope 1 emissions are really directly from the use of our product. But because we are making these and a lot of our customers use them, the vast majority of the impact actually happens when the customers use the product. Right? So frankly, a lot of the work that's happening on the technology side, right, which is what the work that's happening, let's say, on electrification, the work that's happening on having more intelligent products, more connected products, bringing in different controls, technologies to make our products more efficient. I think these play a vast role, by reducing, let's say, our dependence on furnaces and kind of going to electric heat pumps. The electrification is a big trend. Kind of going to alternate refrigerants, cleaner refrigerants is a big trend. Eliminating materials of concern is a big trend. Similarly, how do you improve energy efficiency? That's a big trend. So these are 4 or 5 trends, and I think that the more technologies that we use and adopt, which we are doing in our engineering centers across the world, then you start really impacting that. So that's how I say the sustainability really is at the core of everything that we do.
That's true. I mean, right from the materials that you use till the end consumer, how they are using it, and what is the impact there. It's actually throughout the value chain.
It is throughout the value chain. Not only that, but even in our operations, right? I mean, frankly, many years ago, for example, the kinds of oils that you use in manufacturing, what kind of volatile organic compounds are there, and how can you have less VOCs or less evaporative emissions coming out of our factories. I think those are how do you kind of become how do you reduce use of resources, and how do you incorporate solar in our electricity in our factories? Well, I believe 5% of our Gurgaon factory is powered through solar. So I think there are so I think it really begins at home on what you do.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Nanda. Thank you so very much. Really interesting conversation about not just the locations where the GCCs should be located, but overall, the overall sustainability angle as well, and the talent angle as well. So thank you so very much. Very interesting.
Thank you very much.